All right, we are here at Adepticon. All right, let's go ahead. I got my palette here. I just want to make sure I got my brushes, got the model in here, and my cup. Now, let's see. Am I forgetting something? Oh no. There's no paint. It's gotta be somewhere around here that's got paint, right?
No, I don't see any paint around here.
That'll work. Are the Army Painter Warpaints Fanatics worth it? Let's talk about that. Oh, you're still here. Spoiler alert, yeah, but back to the intro. So this past weekend, I went to Adepticon. Now, my Adepticon trip got mired by a little bit of stuff. I actually went on Friday, so I left Friday morning/afternoon, got there in the evening, and then unfortunately Minnesota had an impending snowstorm coming on Sunday, which is when I was originally going to drive back. So I actually had to cancel my second night, and I drove back Saturday just to be safe. But that being said, in that meantime, I managed to get my hands on the new Army Painter Warpaints Fanatic. Now, I've talked about these before, at least I've mentioned them somewhere in passing, but I got to try them at LVO, and I was a fan. I thoroughly enjoyed the paints that I got to work with, and I got to interface with the Army Painter team a little bit there as well. That was very, very nice, and in fact evolved into me emailing them and asking if I could come to Adepticon, if they were going to be at Adepticon, and if I could come to the booth and take some time to film and paint something. They were more than happy to accommodate that. I am so gracious about that, and I will actually cover that a little bit later in the video as well. But that was something that was very, very nice. Well, I ordered a cool little orc bust that I, primed, and then I dry brushed with a little bit of white and a mix of ivory in there to kind of give it a little bit of a warmer tone. And lo and behold, I set off for Adepticon. From where I am in Minnesota was about a solid 6-hour drive, a little shy of that, not including stops. So took us a little bit to get there, but once we got there, it was all smooth. I checked into the hotel, and then I went over, checked out some of the vendors, and this was my first time going to Adepticon. And holy crap, is it massive. Like, you enter in through one side, you walk past a ton of vendors, and it keeps going and going. That place full on Energizer Bunny. Like, it just keeps going, like halls after halls after halls of gaming. It's insane. It was super awesome to see, but I had an objective. I had a goal. And my goal was to be able to sit down and spend some time with the Army Painter speed paints, or the Fanatic specifically, and get some time in with those. So I touched base with the Army Painter team, confirmed that everything was good, and then, I did all the other fun stuff that was going on with Adepticon, checked everything out, met up with some of my teammates that were there as well, and we just kind of hung out, got some food and stuff like that. But next morning, I got down to it. So I got there right at, the vendor hall opened at 10 a.m. Touch base with the Army Painter again, all of them super, super lovely. We picked out a lovely spot, and I got started on that bust. So let's break down some of my thoughts. Number one, love the opacity. The opacity and the creaminess of the paints is super, super nice, because in my personal opinion, the way that I like to paint is I would much rather have something be a lot more opaque and work it down to whatever I need it to be. Do I need it to be a glaze? Cool, I'll work it down to a glaze. Do I need it to be more of a layer? Cool, I'll work it down to a layer. Do I just need this to cover whatever I'm painting? Yes, cool. I can just add a little bit of water just to make sure it's nice and smooth, and then it's just on the model, done. So I started right away with the green skin and just started working my way up. But the thing that just really, really sinks in when you're painting with these is how much fun you're having. Like, there's no real other way to explain it, right? Like, it's just, you sit down and it's one of those times where you start painting something and you keep painting not out of some sort of like internal drive to like, oh, well, I need to finish this detail in order for me to set this down, or I need to get this done. You just keep painting because you're loving what you're doing. You're loving what you're painting, and you're loving the experience you have while painting it. Let's be real, we've all had moments where we're painting with a certain type of paint, or we're painting a model, and it just becomes so unfun that we literally just set it down, or we just like beat our head against the wall until we get through that detail. And I never had any of that while painting with this at all. Admittedly, one of the bits that I did use is I actually did use 2 speed paints. Specifically, I used Grim Black for the hair, just to get a base layer on there, and I used it for the browns on his waist, his leather waist belt, and a few bits on his arms and stuff like that. But the one thing that I actually did do is I actually took Satchel Brown, which was the one that I was using, and I used it, you know, kind of more or less straight out of the dropper bottle on the midsection of the belt, and then I kind of thinned it out a little bit with a little bit of water for the straps to kind of show that they were a little bit lighter. That was just kind of a way for me to kind of capture a lot of texture and get a lot done within there without, you know, sacrificing too much time or anything like that. Obviously, we are still here to try out the Warpaints Fanatic paints, not necessarily speed paints, but I mean, tool within the tool chest. You use your tools that are within the tool chest. If it's a useful tool, you use it, right? So it made sense to me. But once we got through that and we got a lot of those base layers, I just started highlighting, and I just loved the creamy consistency of the Warpaints Fanatic. They were so nice to use. Again, talking about that opacity and the ability to work it down and get it to whatever you needed to. So I used different colors from different triads. Like I had used Greenskin, and then I had leapt over to like Rainforest, and I even used some Ice Yellow to mix into the Greenskin to elevate it up a little bit. I worked my way around the musculature, I worked my way around the face, I went with the highlights that I liked. And for me personally, I know for a lot of orc skin, there's I see a lot of painters that do more of the yellow to almost like skin tony lips and like knuckles and fingers and stuff like that. This is clearly inspired by a Warcraft orc, and that's what I went with. I was like, yep, that's what we're painting. So I kind of more or less just did lighter, more vibrant greens on like the lip. So some of my footage is a little sparing here and there, but part of that is also just because I was shooting it with my phone via this method, right here. You're watching how I do this. But basically, it was me trying to save my battery, depending on how long I was going to film. My phone's a little bit older, it's got a lower battery life, so I was doing more targeted filming when I could. So I'd turn on the camera and then, paint a certain detail until I kind of felt like I had covered enough, B-roll footage. And that's obviously the stuff that you're seeing in the video right now is B-roll footage. And it's just going to have my pleasant voice. God, I hope it's pleasant. Narrating over the top anyway, so it doesn't really particularly matter. But there were times where I forgot to hit record, and it's because I was enjoying myself. I was just in the moment. And the other nice part about going to these booths at these cons and stuff like that have these demo products is you get to connect with a lot of the other hobbyists in your area or in the con in general. These people could be from all over the country. And it's just such a cool moment to have when you get to connect with them. You get to talk about what you like, maybe what you don't like, or it's a very community building thing. And they had, plenty of spots there. They were guiding people, asking questions, answering questions. And so that was all going on around me as well. And that was also just really, really fantastic to have and really added to the experience while I was painting. I was just kind of working my way through the model. And I had some people who kind of just like peeked over my shoulder and they're just like, oh, this guy's working on something else. And I was just like, yeah, doing this. And there were a lot of very, very kind words from strangers, and that was super, super nice and super encouraging as well. So if somehow you stumbled on this video and you were one of the people who saw me painting the bust and you said some kind words, thank you very much. I massively, massively appreciate it. Speaking of which, if you like this video, be sure to like and subscribe. I'd love to keep seeing you here. And of course, I'm going to have a more in-depth review of the entire Fanatic range once I acquire that. So once I have that, you'll see that come up as well. And you're not going to want to miss that because I'm going to really have some fun. And there'll be a lot more footage of the painting there as well. So I worked my way through the rest of the model, picking up the details that I could, the ivories, and there was even some techniques that I was using in there, like picking up one of the darker blues from the Fanatic range and dry brushing it on the hair. There was enough texture there on his hair to be able to pick up the raised area to kind of give it that bluish black kind of feel to it. And I think it really kind of enhanced the model a lot and really kind of helped lift that up. But the other half I got to experiment with two things. Number one, I got to experiment with the Warpaints metallic itself. I got to mess with Greedy Gold, and that's what I used on the shoulder trimming, the very nice shoulder trimming and the rings on the belt. And it went on fantastic. Its coverage was great. Really no complaints anywhere. It was a great metallic. I can be very picky about metallics because there's nothing worse than putting metallic down on your palette or something like that and trying to cover something and it just thin, or it's just not opaque, it doesn't cover, it sucks. Because then you have to go back and you have to do it again and again, and it just drives you absolutely bonkers. This worked fantastically. And the other part two, is that I also got to experiment with speed paint metallics. This was the first time I got to use the Army Painter speed paint metallics. I had heard about them, I wasn't sure on them, I had watched a couple videos, but I was like, you know what, if I'm going to try something, I want to give the jewelry braids, or like the braids in his hair, a different metallic feel. I don't want it to just be the same metallic as what's on his belt or what's on the shoulder trim. So I instead opted to try one of the metallic speed paints, and I did Aztec Gold, and that I now I have to pick them all up, if I'm being honest. Like, it actually kind of threw me for a loop how good those were and how good they felt going on there. Because part of the reason you use speed paints, whether it be the more acrylic-y speed paints or the brighter color speed paints versus metallic speed paints, is you're trying to create a depth, right? Like, some of it's supposed to settle into the recesses, make it feel deeper, and kind of create natural highlights. But I just loved the finish of that Aztec Gold on those braid pieces. So yeah, at some point I'm gonna have to clearly dip my hand into one of those as well and pick some of those up. So fingers crossed, knock on wood, we'll get some of that later as well. So after about an hour and a half, I'd finished the metallics. I had done, the layering on the skin that I wanted to, and I was just blown away by what I was able to accomplish. I got the eyes. I decided to just leave them like the clean kind of white eyes and kind of go for more of like that rage, like you see in anime, when the eyes just pure white. I thought it kind of added a nice like visceral layer to the model or to the bust there, so I really loved it. But at the end of the day, I also kind of felt bad because there were so many people at the booth that were coming and checking out the new war paints, and I wanted them to get their hands on it. So I was like, all right, you know what, this is good enough. I decided to call it a day there. I also had to drive back, that evening anyway. I technically spent less than 24 hours at Adepticon, but boy was it awesome. Boy was it a whirlwind and great time. So I, got my stuff, showed everyone what I had painted, took pictures with everybody that I could. I missed a couple of people. Caleb, sorry. I should have gotten a picture with you, especially after our talk. But I got through all that and I was blown away. I got to the end of it and I knew I was going to pick up the complete set. Now, let's answer the question. Are the Army Painter Warpaints Fanatics the greatest paint range that has ever existed? I'm gonna say no. Now, pause, hold that thought, because here's my reasoning. Every paint range is different. Now, and it's different for a couple different reasons. Now, we've closed the gap and we've gotten closer to right now the paint market is incredibly competitive. It's very healthily competitive. There are so many different paint brands out there that are accomplishing so many different things in the hobby. We have great products out there, and the Warpaints Fanatic is arguably one of my favorites. So this is my defense. I would say no, because in my probable opinion, if we're going to go objectively the best paint of all time, it's probably a paint that you literally take it out of the pot, put it on your brush, and then you just, violently slap it everywhere, and it just immediately paints a golden demon standard. This art, miniature painting, is a skill set, right? There's a certain skill set that comes with it. There are people who can paint and submit things for golden demon and win. Ninjon, Sam Lens, like Marco. All of these people are phenomenal painters. And all of them use different paints, different methods, different techniques. It's a skill set. So realistically, I don't think there's gonna be a paint set that's considered, necessarily the best in the world or something like that. I think it's always gonna be a matter of skill expression. What paint range offers what you're looking for that's going to allow you to showcase your skill to the point of improvement. For me, when I sat down with the Army Painter Warpaints Fanatics and I played with them, I got to really mess around, I got to glaze them, I got to do everything. They were my favorite, hands down. I never completely jump it into a complete paint range for anything. I slowly built my Citadel collection. I slowly built some Monument Hobbies paints. I backed Wave 1 and Wave 2 later for Tooth and Coats because I waited for the reviews to come out on Wave 1. And if I'm being honest, I looked at Wave 3 that's coming out and that's on pre-order for their Kickstart, and the paints in there just don't intrigue me. So I'm not backing Wave 3 personally, just me personally. I looked at the Warpaints Fanatic. I got to play with them at Las Vegas Open, and I got to play with them at Adepticon. I got to spend a lot of time with them. I got to spend more time with the complete set here, I feel like, myself, because I wasn't playing in an event or anything like that. But this to me is my personal favorite paint. And so we come to the end. Overall impressions, I am loving what I've got my hands on, what I've gotten to use. I am backing it 100%. I am buying the complete collection of all 216 of the paints, including the effects and everything like that. And I am so excited. But of course, one final thank you to everyone at Army Painter, to Bo, to Adam, to Kat, to Caleb, to Sam Lenz, to Uncle Adam, to Phil the Glacial Geek, to anyone at that booth. Thank you so much. Thomas, of course, Thomas, of whom I hope you're enjoying your 2023 Adepticon glass. Hope that helped as a nice little keepsake. But to every single one of you, thank you so much. I really hope that I get to see you all very soon again. It has meant the absolute world to me what you have done for me. So thank you for saving me a spot at the booth so that I could film that and so that I could talk about this.
Future James here. If you're looking to pick up the Army Painter Warpaints Fanatic and pre-order that, you can look right down in the description there. I will include a link to the Army Painter's website, so be sure to check that out as well.
But in the meantime, I've been Tattooed Tabletop. Let's have Adam and Past Me send this video out.
All right, just wrapping up here at the Army Painter. Finished up my model. These all beautiful, and yeah, we're getting the complete set. It's happening. It's happening. So
you're not the only one here.
No, absolutely not. So for everyone at home, just go paint something.